Hello friends, welcome to my channel. So if you're new here, my name is Faith and today I'm gonna show you how to make these easy Tunisian stitch fingerless gloves. This is a beginner friendly pattern and I have the free written pattern on our blog. I will add the link in the description box below so you can check it out for other sizes. And the size I made in this video is an adult medium size and it can fit an adult small size. So it's very fitting. And this is how it looks like. Sorry, I haven't weaved in all these ends. I'll just do it after this video. So this is how it looks. It's so stylish and I really enjoyed working on it. The yarn is discontinued, but I'll give you the substitute yarn that you can use. So without wasting much time, let's just head over to our video. So for this tutorial, we're going to be using this coral reef. It's a loops and thread yarn, but it's discontinued and you can substitute it with any worsted weight yarn or yarn that it's here medium 4 and it recommends a 5mm crochet hook. We're going to use a pair of scissors, stitch marker, only one stitch marker is required, and a 5mm crochet hook. Don't forget a darning needle to weave in all the loose ends. So to begin, we're going to make a slip knot. And then chain 29. So this is the medium adult size and I'll have all other sizes listed in the description box below. So go ahead, chain 29 and I'll meet you on row 1. So when you're through with your 29 chains, you're going to start drawing up loops on each chain. So you can either turn your work, skip the first chain and at the second chain, go in the back loop and draw up a loop. So continue drawing loops at the back loop of every chain, and at the end of your row 1 or at the end of drawing up loops, you should have 29 loops on your hook. So just work them out and I'll meet you at the end of this, my row 1. So at the end of row or at the end of drawing up loops, you should have 29 loops on your hook. It's the same number as your foundation chains. So to finish row 1 in Tunisian crochet, we are going to start by chaining 1 and then yarn over and draw through 2 loops, yarn over, draw through 2 loops and repeat that until you have only 1 loop on your hook. So our row 1 is complete, and to proceed to row 2, we're going to draw loops on these vertical bars. So go behind every vertical bar and draw a loop. Go in the next vertical bar, draw a loop. And repeat drawing loops on every vertical bar until you have the last stitch remaining. So when you have 28 loops or when you're remaining with only 1 stitch at the end, I'll show you how to work it and then how to do the return pass. The return pass is just similar as the one we did for our row 1. So continue, and when you have 1 stitch remaining, I'll show you how to do the last Tunisian stitch. So I'm here at the end of my row. I'm having only one stitch remaining. So to do the last stitch, you're not going to go only on this first vertical bar. We're going to go through both loops there at the end, like this, and then draw your last loop. Then start by chaining one or yarning over and drawing through only one loop. Then continue by drawing through two loops until you have one loop remaining on your hook. So if you're completely new to Tunisian crochet, I'll link a tutorial in the description box so you can follow it up before you work this pattern. But it's a simple pattern, you can just work it out without following the tutorial. So my row 2 is complete, and from row 3 to row 7 we're going to repeat our row 2 pattern by drawing loops through each stitch, and when you reach the last one you're going to draw a loop through both the two loops there at the end, and then you chain one, you yarn over, pull through two until you have one loop on your hook. So to show you once more, you're going to draw loops on each stitch or on each vertical bar until you have the last one remaining. So go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you at the end of your row. So when you're remaining with only one stitch at the end, you're going to go through both loops, and then you draw your last loop. For the return pass, you're going to chain one, and then you yarn over, pull through two until you have only one loop on your hook. So when you reach the end, you're going to repeat that row 3 pattern until you have a total of 7 rows. To count your rows, you're going to count these vertical bars. So this is our first row, our second row, and our third row. So when you have 7 rows, I'll show you how to start increasing from the 8th row. So after working your 7 rows, you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're going to mark the middle stitch. So remember we had 29 stitches across, so you're going to count 14 this side and then mark the 15th stitch because that's our middle stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and this 15th stitch you're going to mark it with our marker and then proceed to row 8. So for row 8 you're going to draw loops on each vertical bar until you reach the last stitch to your marker. So you should have 14 loops on your hook. So you have 14 loops on our hook, and what you're going to do, you're going to make one as an increase. So go through the space between the vertical bars there and then draw a loop. So that's our increase, our first increase. Then go ahead and draw a loop on this stitch with our marker, and then make one after marker. you're going to make one there, and then you continue drawing loops until the end of your row. So draw loops, and when you reach the last stitch, you're going to draw loops through both two loops at the end. So when you reach the end, you're going to draw loops through both the two at the end, the two loops, then chain one and yarn over, pull through two loops until you have only one loop on your hook. So when you're done with the return pass, you're going to move your stitch marker on the top stitch. So this is the stitch on top of our marker, just replace it with your marker. So that will be the middle stitch. Row 9, we're going to repeat our row 8 pattern. So since we added one stitch here, we have 15 on this side and 15 on this other side. So draw loops until you have 15 loops on your hook, and I'll show you how to make one stitch here. So I've reached the last stitch to my marker, or to my middle stitch. You're going to go in this space between the two stitches and then draw a loop. Draw a loop on that middle stitch, and then make another increase. So insert your needle between the middle stitch and the next stitch, let it pass through the back, and then draw a loop and continue drawing loops on the vertical bars only until you reach the last stitch. So you reach the last stitch, you want to draw loops through both loops there at the end. Always remember that. Then chain one, yarn over, pull through two, pull through two, pull through two, until you have only one loop on your hook. So again, you want to move your stitch marker to the top stitch, always marking that middle stitch, and then from row 10 to row 17 we're going to repeat our row 9 pattern. So draw loops on each stitch until you have only the middle stitch remaining, then make one increase here, draw a loop on that middle stitch, make another increase, continue drawing loops. So continue with that increase until you have a total of 17 rows from here. So I went ahead and finished my 17 rows, 10 rows of increase and 7 rows of constant here at the bottom. And this is how my work looks. You can see the increases here at the thumb area. So what you're going to do on row 18, you're going to work Tunisian simple stitch on each stitch across until you reach the last stitch. Then you work the return pass. So we're not going to make any increase on this row. Just draw loops on the second stitch and each stitch, and when you reach the last stitch you're going to work the last Tunisian stitch by going through the last two loops. So just proceed and I'll meet you at the last Tunisian stitch. So when you reach the end, you want to go through both loops. Then for the return pass, you're going to chain one, yarn over, pull through two loops, pull through two loops until you have one loop remaining on your hook, and then I'll show you how to progress from row 19 to your last row. So when you're through with row 18, you're going to mark the thumb area. To do that, you're going to count 5 stitches on both sides of your middle stitch. So this is our middle stitch. So count 5 stitches on this side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then on that space after your 5th stitch, you're going to place your marker. And then count it also on this other side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for this side, we're going to place our marker on the space after the 5th stitch. Then you can remove this middle stitch. So you have a total of 11 stitches on the thumb area, 5 on this side and 5 on this side. So at this point you can try and fit in your glove and ensure that your thumb fits in perfectly. So row 19 will be a repeat row all through up to row 30, and to do that you're going to draw loops on each stitch. So work Tunisian simple stitch until you reach the stitch before marker. So when you reach that stitch right before your marker, you're going to work on it, and then you move on this other side and continue with the stitch after marker. So this stitch right here. Draw loops until the last stitch. So when you reach the last one, you want to work through both loops and then chain 1, yarn over, pull through 2, and repeat pulling through 2 until you have 1 loop on your hook. So at the end of row 19 you can now see your thumb area, and at this point you can just remove the marker. So row 20, work Tunisian simple stitch across, draw loops on each stitch until the end of your row. When you reach the end, work the last Tunisian stitch by going through both loops, then drawing a loop and chain 1, then draw yarn over, pull through 2 loops until you have 1 loop on your hook. So when you're done with row 20, you're going to repeat that pattern of row 20 by working Tunisian simple stitch and then last Tunisian stitch and then return pass until you have a total of 30 rows. So from row 21 to row 30, just repeat the row 20 pattern, and I'll meet you when you're binding it off and then when you're joining this side and working your last row here. So I've gone ahead and finished my rows. In total I have 30 rows, and to bind it off you're going to insert your hook in the next stitch, yarn over and pull through both loops. Go in the next, yarn over, pull through both loops, and repeat this to the end of the row. So when you reach the last stitch, you're also going to go through both loops and then work your last bind off, then chain 1, and you're going to cut your yarn. So we want to leave a length of the top to your bottom times 6. So this is 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we are leaving this long tail because you're also going to work a reverse single crochet here at the bottom, and we want to use this yarn. We don't want to attach any new yarn at the end. So cut your yarn. So after your last bind off, you're going to chain 1 and then pull that yarn through. Grab your darning needle and then working on the right side, you want to join the two sides together. So first we'll go on this last stitch, the last bind off, and then go through the first bind off on the opposite side and join them together. Then go through the back loop of this first stitch. You want to go through the back loop on this side and then join it to the first loop of this other side. Go back at your bind off just to fasten off that join at the top. Then go back on the first stitch, and from here you can proceed. So the next back loop and the back loop of this side. Sorry, front loop on this side and back loop on this other side. Back loop and back loop. So repeat this, joining them back loop to back loop until the last stitch at the end of that row. So continue joining them back loop to back loop until you reach the last stitch of this row. So continue joining them back loop to back loop until you reach the last stitch, and then I'll show you how to work the reverse single crochet at the bottom border. So when you reach the bottom of your work, you want to go through that last stitch one more time, then go on the first stitch and the last stitch of your foundation chains. Then go through them again and release your yarn off your needle. Grab your 4mm crochet hook and then go on this last stitch or the first stitch. Remember, we worked on the back bump so that We can easily see the stitches here at the bottom. You can see them. So chain 1, then go in the previous stitch and work a reverse single crochet. So when you've gone all around, you want to go on the first stitch and then work a slip stitch, chain 1, cut your yarn, then with your darning needle you want to weave it inside your work. Then cut that remaining tail. So to finish off the thumb area, you want to grab your yarn and then make a slip knot. Open your thumb area and you want to go here in between these two stitches. So insert your hook in between those stitches and then yarn over, pull through. You'll have single crochet, pull through those two loops. And then on this second stitch, instead of going on this loop only, you want to go through that loop and the space between the two loops. So insert your hook through both loops and work your slip stitch. Here at the bottom, or the first among the 5 stitches here, you want to work slip stitches. So 2, 3, 4, 5, then slip stitch in that middle stitch, slip stitch in the next 5, so on this opposite side you also want to go, you want to go between this stitch and this one here. So insert your hook through both two loops, then work your slip stitch. Then when you're back on your first stitch, go inside that single crochet and work your last slip stitch, chain 1 and cut your yarn. Pull through. So you can go ahead and weave it in the inside of your work. So our mitten is done. So our mitten is complete, and if you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comment section below. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. You can like it, share it with your friends, and until next time, stay safe, God bless you, and happy crocheting.